Nas released. Well, do I even say Nas released it? Because I don't know who released this. I Am double album. Do you want to do the
It
intro for this? Because I know you probably have a lot of the information.
feels like Sony did this for one.
Okay.
Um, I think a couple things I want to address with it is like everybody's like, well, this isn't the copy.
Okay.
It's like, first of all, there was a lot of copies because it's the most bootleg rap album of all time. So, this, to my best knowledge, was the first original copy. I told you I had this copy, and right after Fetus, it went into an interlude with the Nas's like beat playing in the background, telling him to stop stealing this shit. And then, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, the only thing that was missing is here. It went into Find Your Wealth. That ended up on the QB's Finest soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of this project played like this, and so like Find Your Wealth and that little interlude was what the original bootleg was. But there's like 4 or 5 versions of this bootleg, Mike, is what's really going on. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And I think the only thing that's ever going to clear up the mystique about it is if he talks about it. Good luck with that shit, by the way. But I mean, Mike, and I'm being dead ass serious when I say this. I think Steve Stoute did this shit, Mike. He the one I feel like him and Nas was having a falling out. Nas wasn't making the type of records that he thought he should make. He was starting to hang with J-Ass, and his way of getting back at Nas for the fallout was bootlegging this shit.
Okay, let's rewind. Let's rewind. You feel all right.
The song?
Oh, rewind. You all right, you were working at a record store at this time, right? And so you heard this original I Am, and it was a double album, or at least a lot of the songs on it. And you feel that if this album was released in the way that it should have been released, it changes the course of history. I mean, can you speak to some of that?
Well, I mean, I think if you take the original version that I heard and then couple that with Illmatic and it was written, it's very much the best 3-run solo album run an artist has ever had in hip hop as far as dropping his first 3 albums. Because I think the standard for a long time was Paid in Full, Follow the Leader, Let the Rhythm Hit Him, and rightfully so.
Right.
I think this version, first of all, it was written better than Follow the Leader. Illmatic's better than Paid in Full, or it's arguable, depending on what era you come from. Even if you want to call Illmatic and Paid in Full a wash, because people from Raw there is going to say, well, Paid in Full is the Illmatic for its time. That's fair. So let's say we washing that. It was written than Follow the Leader. Well, this version of I Am that I had, not that shit that got released, oh, that's better than Let the Rhythm Hit Him. And so I think the GOAT talk really would have started more right there. But also, too, listen to what I'm saying. This album is the most heavily bootlegged album ever, and it still sold 3 million copies. How many records does he sell if it doesn't get bootlegged? He does 4 or 5 mil or 6 million records. Not as a double, Mike. Let's just say it comes out as a single solo shot. Oh, no, he going to do 4, 5, 6 mil because he did 3 mil with all the bootlegging.
So, with that being said, is Hate Me Now on this version? Because Hate Me Now, I feel like, had a lot to do with selling that album. Does this album sell without Hate Me Now on it?
Yeah, it does. Because I don't think people really got to hear the original version of Project Window, which is just a better single than Hate Me Now. And to be honest with you, it's like, Mike, I think Nas is like sold this album because for the people who didn't care for it was written, keep in mind, it was written and still being heavily criticized when I Am's coming out.
Right.
And for the people who wanted Illmatic Nas, if you heard Nas is like, Game probably felt the need to go support it in a way that you didn't before to make sure that he didn't make If I Rule the World and Street Dreams and dress up in pink suits and shit again.
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, brother. Nas is Like sold me on the album back in the day. I remember seeing the video for Nas is Like, and I felt like I might have missed a Nas record somewhere or something. I thought it was old. You know what I'm saying?
It very much sounds like, Mike, how about this? If you were to put Nas is like right before It Ain't Hard to Tell on Illmatic, it's like, no, it fits right. It fits on Illmatic. It is very much Illmatic-like. And so I think for the people, like, Illmatic has its lore by now. And so I think Nas is Like is a bigger selling point than Hate Me Now. Hate Me Now is a big crossover single, but also people forget this. Ronald Isley in 1998 had witnessed a resurgence.
He did.
So think about how many Isley fans would have gravitated towards him being on a Nas joint. You get what I'm saying?
No, you're right. Because this is right after Download where he was Mr. Biggs on there, right?
Mr. Biggs right now. He's making a big comeback. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, that would have garnered the same type of attention just in a different way because Project Windows is a more Illmatic type of song.
LP with
Like,
the super chat. Hold on, my bad.
more ill-ish.
LP with the super chat says, y'all said Cube was a better rapper than Biggie. When the fans brought up bars, y'all said it wasn't just about that. This is not the same argument. No, because Luda doesn't have the Ice Cube catalog. No, it's not the same
No, I'm
argument.
about to say, we didn't say that
It's not.
it was better because he got the opportunity to make a greater catalog.
Right.
We didn't say in a better rhymer than Big. I think very few people in a vacuum are a better rhymer than Big.
Straight up.
I don't think Jay is better than Big, but I have Jay ranked higher.
Jermaine Johnson with the super chat says, oink oink pig pig, do away with the pork. Only silverware I need is a steak knife and a fork. That's deep.
Yeah.
And that's one of his strongest verses too. I think that the Welcome to Atlanta verse is one of the strongest verses from him. And yes, oink oink pig pig, do away with the pork. This is who you guys are vouching for against Chains. Anyway, back to the double disc. You want to go to the track list, and I want to see how official, I guess, this track list is, based on what you remember hearing. And like you said, it's a multitude of tracks that were supposed to be on this. Do you think this final decision that's being made by Sony is accurate, or what do you think?
Yes, I think this is probably the first version of the album that got sent to them. That's part of why they're releasing it, Mike. Like, they're releasing these songs for a reason. This is probably the project that he handed to them first. Right. Because you also have to think about it, too. What do you do if your album's getting bootlegged and you're in trouble and people don't like your last album like that, even though it's brilliant? You might go back to what you know. So the first thing you might do is call DJ Premier and make Nas's Like and make New York State of Mind Part 2. New York State of Mind Part 2 doesn't get made if this is going on. He doesn't do a record with DMX if this is going on. He don't do no damn Hate Me Now with Puff if this is going on. He don't, Mike. This was the original version that got sent. I told you the only record that's actually missing on here that was on mine was Find Your Wealth was on the copy that I had. And I remember that because I can remember it was Fetus. It went into the interlude riffing where he was actually like, it's one of the few times I've ever actually heard him angry. You know what I'm saying? And then it went on your wealth, and then the rest of this plays. But Mike, these records were probably the original submission, and Steve Stoute probably the one that submitted it, and he did some hater shit, Mike. That's my prognostication, and I would love to hear Nas actually come out and talk about it because somebody close to him leaked this shit, and it wasn't Sony because Sony stood the most to gain financially from him selling 3, 4, 5, 6 million records. So I don't want to hear nothing about nobody in the offices of Sony Columbia doing this shit. I don't want to hear no shit about Jungle doing this shit. All signs point to Stevie. Stevie.
I'm going to get to this track list real quick, but somebody said Fatty Girl, and I just want to give a couple of bars from there. Girl, you taste like a Cinnabon. So sweet from the thighs to the cheek. Sex on the beach. Check the size of my meat. Call me the butcher. Ludacris, King Dingaling. That's what y'all going with? Come on, guys. CJ Kid with the super chat says, not to change the topic, but if West Savannah was on Southern Playalistic, where would it rank as far as the best track on that album? That's a very good question. It would be up there. It would be up there. West Savannah's strong.
Ain't no thing, Crumbling Earth, Hootie Hoo, Get Up, Get Out are still better. So I'd say best case scenario is 5th. It's not better than those 4 records.
I don't know, bro. It's not better than Hootie Hoo.
Or Crumbling Herb. Crumbling Herb.
I love Crumbling Herb. I think West Savannah and Crumbling Herb are on a similar level, but maybe because they have a similar makeup. But yeah, and the only reason why I say that because West Savannah is a lot more personal than Crumbling Herb is. I think when you make a record like West Savannah, you can only make a record like that one time. Big Boy was letting us know who he was, where he was from, what he's about.
I think if you're swapping out a record, a comp for it, it's comparable to Claiming True.
I was gonna say Claiming True's got to go, and I love Claiming True. That's how great this album is.
Classic, Mike.
I think the weakest song on the album, and I say this respectfully, I think is "Call It a While," but I understand why.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand why Call It a Wild has to
Oh,
stay.
it's not better than Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music either. So I don't think it's a
No, it's
top
not.
five.
It's not.
It's not.
No. Now
It's
that
not.
one, I'm with you on. Leroy Green with the
Yes.
super chat says, "Folks laughing, but if Luda was in a cipher and we was all back in 1999, 2000, a lot of them would be in trouble. MVP, Beast Mode, Undisputed, Hip Hop Quotables, bars. Y'all still ain't giving me no bars."
Everybody acting like Luda can't rap. First of all, y'all not giving us no bars because y'all don't know the bar work themselves, and the bar work y'all are remembering. Y'all are reciting it to yourself right now, and it's like, okay, so his
Yeah,
thing is
that's
the
not gonna
flow.
play well.
Right.
You try to
And
type it out, you're like, well, that's not gonna work.
right. Right. And when everybody's trying to disrespect Luda, I've always looked at Luda as more of Atlanta's first real big hit maker.
Yeah, he was our first solo star in hip hop. Period.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, Mike. But he not chains on the mic. No, he's not. He's not chains. 2 Chains.
Mall7 with the super chat says Nas not releasing the original I Am album created a narrative that he fell off. And a lot of people still say today, which is crazy, it did create that narrative. And you know what? That's something that should have never happened.
Can I speak to something right quick?
Sure.
This is what I mean about this hurt him. Do you realize how many songs he made in this short period of time? When people were talking about his work ethic and his beat picking, do these beats sound bad to you?
Is Nas like bad beat picking?
Is Small World bad beat picking? Is Fetus bad beat picking?
Well, let me go through the track list real quick. This is
Laser
what
50?
actually made it. Fetus, Small World, Money Is My Bitch, Project Windows, Papa Was a Player, which is a dope beat, by the way.
It is. That's Kanye, ain't it? Kanye co-produced that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And I wasn't
Yeah.
even just saying that because, me being, trying to slip Kanye into the show. I forgot for real.
You cape for, I vote for Kanye. We're all wrong.
Dr. Knockboot. Now, that wasn't the best beat.
You could have
Daydreaming.
kept that. Track Masters, Mike.
Yeah. Daydreaming, Stay Scheming. Sometimes I wonder. Hardest thing to do is stay alive. Drunk by
First thing to do is
myself.
hard.
I want to play rough. Blaze of 50. We will survive. Blaze of 50 sounds like it's the second to last song on an album. So I tend to believe that right there might have been very accurate.
They have no reason to release this in any other form than probably the original masters that they got. Because here's the thing. He probably didn't trust anybody after that first one and probably started keeping it to himself and not handing it to the label. So this is probably the stuff they have the original masters to, Mike.
Yeah.
They don't have the original masters to Nas's Like, because you want to know why? Because he ain't make Nas's Like until he realized this shit was being pirated and he had to start scrambling. He was trying to move on to a different phase. The bootlegging forced him to go back. Like, how about this? Illmatic is the kid from the Project Window. You know what I'm saying? I Am is about what the kid's life was actually like. Like, it's not, Illmatic is about the kid looking out and telling you what Queensbridge is like. I Am is him telling you what he is like. What Nas is like. That's what I'm saying. The whole theme of the album, I Am. Like, he's explaining the kid that ended up making Illmatic on this album. That's what it is.
So, I mean, from what I'm hearing from you.
Because Steve Stoute wanted to compete and seeing Jay had just did $5 million, and he probably wasn't okay with Nas taking that type of reflective, Illmatic type of direction to a project because he's thinking, that shit ain't going to sell no records. I just helped you sell 2.5 million records because we made If I Rule the World and Street Dreams. And so this album doesn't have very many Street Dreams or If I Rule the World inspired records. And I think Stoute was mad and he bootlegged this shit.
What I would like to hear, I would like to hear Stoute's take on I Am. I mean, we've heard him speak on It Was Written and those successes, but you're right. It makes you think with the theme that, this was supposed to take on, the growth of this artist at this stage was stunted because, people were trying to sell records.
Think about this. You go from starting off an album with the message in Street Dreams to literally explaining your birth on the first record. The whole ethos of the album was supposed to be that, and Steve Stoute, being the businessman that he is, probably bootleg this album, Mike, because Nas speaks to it briefly on Last Real Nigga Alive. Had lost trust for Steve Stoute till I got to know him. Well, Mike, when did Godson come out?
That was 2002.
Mike, that's only 3 years after this album. When did he lose trust exactly? Probably right around now. About what? Maybe the bootlegging of this album, Mike.
Because we have to ask ourselves, back then, how did the bootlegs get out? Now, from what I've heard, well,
like Steve Out.
This is what I'll say. This is what I've heard, from people in the industry. They used to have to give out promo copies to like the Source magazines, because magazines had to, back then, if you had a magazine, you had to have the album way ahead of time to be able to do a review on it so that it could go to stands and by the time that the album's out. So they're getting promo copies. I would imagine other people in the industry are getting promo copies. But I would also imagine when you have a commodity like this, it's very locked down. And I don't see how any bootleggers will be able to get their hands on it. There has to be a leak somewhere. And you're right, that leak has to be high up. It's not just one of your homies. Why would your homies even do that anyway? Who benefits from this? And that's what you have to look at. Who's actually going to benefit from this?
Right, because if he's thinking about, I don't know, maybe switching managers and going back to his more introspective style, maybe the manager did it. Who was the manager, by the way? Boom, 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 boom. He literally mentioned Steve Stoute on Blaze of 50. Trackmasters produced Dr. Knockboot, and it's signed Nature. So it's definitely being managed by him. And also, I don't know if you noticed too, Mike, Trackmasters ain't really on I Am the way they're on It Was Written.
Fact.
Who Trackmasters managed by? Right. And so I may be prognosticating, but I'm not prognosticating coming from like where there's smoke, there's fire. The only song that I heard of before this album got bootleg was Project Window, and that's because they bought it up in Vibe magazine, which means that the label probably had a copy of Project Window and Dr. Knockboot, and that was the promo that was floating around. Not the whole damn album, Mike. Whole damn albums don't float around in 1998, 99. I'm sorry.
Well, I think the other part of this, and I'm going to get to the super chats in 1 second. If this album exists in this way, Nostradamus never happens, right? At least not in that form. So it's already not a great idea to have leftover tracks and putting them on a whole nother album. I don't think that's ever really successfully happened. But see, my question is, Coop, I don't understand why, if these songs were bootlegged, why did they recycle them a year later and put them on a whole nother album? If it's about not putting out the records that got bootlegged, why did these songs even end up on Nostradamus in the first place?
Well, that's the thing, Mike. The only thing that really ended up on Nostradamus is Project Window.
But it wasn't even the version that was... Yeah,
correct.
It's just all bad.
The version, because, Mike, they changed the version because think about it. He looked at that as a potential first single for his album. It had been the Vibe. Vibe was even talking about in the little snippet for the album how it was more Illmatic inspired. It is. The song's Project Window, Mike. Fetus, Project Window, Papa Was a Player.
Right.
Drunk by Mike, that's the record that we're missing that was on there. Drunk by Myself.
I was going to say, because a lot of that stuff ended up on the Lost Tapes too, and it was dope.
Yeah, wasn't nothing lost about it.
Critical Mass with the super chat says...
Up on QB's Finest, Mike. He was making so much material, it was ridiculous.
Critical Mass with the super chat says, would the leak have affected sales that much, though? That's what I always say. And, again, back then, and I guess we can't really fathom it in today's terms, but they had their projections on the artist and the album, and they didn't want to take any chances based on, the fact that people heard songs that were already, they were about to be released. Because the thing about buying an album, you wanted to go out there and buy an album full of all new stuff that you didn't hear. Now, you got the hardcore fans that are going to get it anyway, but they're trying to get all the fans. So they didn't want to take any chances that a record's been in the streets. And, you might not buy the album because of that. Because you'd be like, I already heard this.
I remember when I bought the copy of I Am that came out, and I turned around and I looked on the back and I said, what in the fuck is this?
And then you probably listened to it and said it again. Anthony with the super chat says, "What chances do you give on the possibility of Nas releasing the double LP as the 25th anniversary?" I say slim to none. This is a storytelling album for real, fire. What do you think?
I don't know.
I hope it
Pissed off
happens.
all.
I don't know
Just
either.
going. Just remember flipping that album over and just being like, "What the fuck is this?" The only thing that made me happy, I was like, "Oh, he got a record with Scarface." I was like, "But what the fuck is the rest of this?"
Well, I think that the allure of this continues on with there not being anything confirmed. Do you know what I mean? Um, so if he never speaks on this, the allure of this double album just grows. But I feel like if we get some level of confirmation from somewhere, then it kind of closes a chapter. But I
Mike, I
would
don't give
love
a
to
damn.
talk to some people that were around during that period. I'm sure everybody has a bunch of different stories.
I don't. You understand? I only want to hear the shit come out his mouth. I don't care about the goddamn songs anymore. I want him to come out and confirm who the fuck bootlegged this shit. Because it's been 25 years and he knows.
Well, do you want to hear Steve Stoute side of this?
Hell
I
no.
would love to
Well,
hear it. I'm interested to hear
look here, man. Mike, when somebody lies to you once,
it.
I'm going to say less. No, I don't want to hear
Patricio with the super
about it.
chat says, "Oh, go ahead."
No, I said, no, I don't want to hear what Steve Stout got to say about it. I don't give a fuck what Steve Stout has to say. Because the type of nigga that'll jump around from Nas camp to J camp is the type of nigga that'll bootleg an album. It's like you only got one time to get slick with it with me.
Patricio with the super chat says, "Mike, Coop, we had a Luda Ti debate last week, and I realized that y'all were right. Ran through Ti's catalog to refresh my memory, and he's probably is better. Shout out to Ti for checking his son yesterday too."
Ain't no probably, but okay.
Born King with the super chat says, "Mega never liked Stout. He wanted to force Mega into his management." Mm.
Yeah, and Mega went with Violator, Chris Lighty.
He sure did. I forgot all about that.
That's how he ended up on Def Jam, if memory serves.
CJ Kid with the super chat says, "When you got that retail version, did you frisbee it after the first listen, Coop?"
It's just not as cohesive or as beautifully written as the original version of I Am. That's what I'm saying.
We used to throw disc on the freeway, man.
I didn't do that. I was a fan.
Oh no, I didn't do that to his album, but I'm just saying. Well, we got a
You want to
CD
know?
that we didn't like. Yeah.
I literally played the bootleg until my girlfriend in college broke it, and she swears she broke it by accident. But we was kind of breaking up, and that nigga did that on purpose. And then I started the regular version of I Am because I had no copy of the bootleg to play anymore. You
Right.
nobody play no original. If you had a copy of the bootleg, you was not walking around playing I Am unless you was like literally riding in your whip trying to impress some girls that didn't know no better. If you was like, yeah.
No, facts. I mean, is that everything? I mean, I think we kind of covered just about everything on the docket, man.
I mean, Mike, between Andre and the Nas bootleg, it's like it just traumatized my whole like. I'm gonna have to go talk to somebody, Mike.
Well, the Busta Rhymes, man, like I said, I know I might not have sounded like I was a fan on here, but I'm genuinely a Busta Rhymes fan. And to see an artist that you were once a fan of continuously, I don't want to say decline, but it's tough for a hip hop listener. Like, even though I know that some of Ghost's stuff, who's another one of my favorite MCs, it's not Supreme Clientele level. It's quality. You know what I mean? It's Ghost, and I'm happy to hear from them. And like somebody said earlier, I'm happy they're active, but I don't see Ghost out here making songs with Kodak Black. And again, nothing against Kodak if it's genuine and if it's something that comes together organically. But forcing yourself on a record with people that you clearly don't mesh well with, nobody wins. That's just my piece on that. And again, I know we're harder on some of the MCs that we're fans of, but that's just the game, man.
To whom much is given, Mike, much is expected.
For
And
sure.
that's not a pop thing. That's a life thing.
Yeah.
Like people expect more from according to hip hop because we've become a voice in the independent circuit. To whom much is given, much is expected. That applies to me. That applies to you. That
Mm-hmm.
applies to Buster. That applies to the homie All Flutes Down. Like it applies. It applies to Nas speaking up about this 25-year-old bootlegging problem. Finally, it applies
So you want
across
to
the
hear
board.
Nas say something about it?
Yeah, I don't want to hear the shit from nobody else. Like what the hell? Like I mean, Steve Stoute's a politician and a very astute businessman. You know what I'm saying? It's like, nah, give me the dude that got bootleg. Because here's the thing about it: when you're an artist, oh, don't tell me that he's emotionally not tied to some of what happened to him. Still, he might be over it, but if he were to speak on it, I guarantee you some of the emotions about it would come out.
Well, let me say this, and I'm gonna say this, and we can leave. The bootlegging of Illmatic actually worked in his favor. It's kind of like the Tom Brady stuff, right? Where people talk about,
It did.
huh?
No, it didn't. How many copies of Illmatic sell?
Well, I'm gonna say from a quality standpoint because they were gonna keep certain records because of the bootlegging. They had to rush it and they slimmed it down. Some of them songs that were going to make it on Illmatic without the bootlegging, I think would have gotten in the way from it being a perfect album. Now, granted, sales, yes, that did do that, but some of those records that were going to make Illmatic, I don't think the album would have been as classic if some of those would have made it. I love Deja
Like
Vu, huh?
like a villain, Deja Vu.
Mm-hmm. I like Deja Vu. I like I'm a villain, but it doesn't. I don't think it makes the album better.
I don't think those tracks would have made the album had they not been bootleg just about quality
Right.
control, Mike. Because the thing, well, he's rapping his ass off on all of those records.
Oh, straight up.
The production wise, Deja Vu and I'm a Villain aren't like up to snuff with the
Exactly.
stuff production wise on Illmatic. So that's where it didn't fit. It wasn't his rhymes,
No,
the
because
beats.
if Deja Vu makes it, then we don't have verbal intercourse in the way that we got it either. So that's a
That's what
benefit. You know what I mean?
I'm saying. So that was about the beats. That wasn't about the bootleg for me.
Right, right. No, I agree with that because he's clicking on all cylinders.
300,000 copies. Like,
Well,
what the
I mean,
fuck?
we've had this argument on Illmatic before, and maybe we can close out on the doggy style, you know what I'm saying, anniversary tip. But I think as great of an album as Illmatic is, what is the song in 1994 that is going to sell that album after, we got Wu Tang with Cream on the radio and Snoop Dogg with all this doggy style shit on the radio?
That's fair, Mike. But like, first of all, taking a Michael Jackson sample in 1993, 94 is a viable way to sell a rap album. So it ain't hard to
Straight up.
tell. It's sellable. There's this whole record called "The World Is Yours," Mike,
Dope record.
that literally has a sing along back and forth chorus. Whose world is this? The world is yours. The world is yours. It's mine. It's mine. It's mine. It's not like it's complicated. It's
Which
very
one,
much sellable.
in your
It's
opinion?
definitely status. It's at least gold status. Like the record alone should have went gold.
In your opinion, if we're taking two records to radio, are you taking The World Is Yours to radio or Sugar Hill?
Taking Sugar Hill, but Sugar Hill
Okay.
partly got made the way that it did, probably because AZ was there somewhat from the Illmatic tour that he talked about
Right.
and saw that unfold.
Yeah.
That's
I
why
agree
he's
with
like,
you.
no. That's why he's like, no, I'm gonna do Sugar Hill and have Miss Jones sing the hook, and I'm gonna make my Pete Rock record the B side. That's Rather Unique. Rather Unique's the B side to Sugar Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
No, I
So
agree.
that's just learning mistakes of how the game gets played.
CJ Kid with the super chat says OGIM is greater than Supreme Clientele.
See, that's
Listen,
why Nas needs to be. Let's not do
don't
that.
get me to talking. I mean, I'm just gonna say no off jump, but
Let's not do that.
yeah.